basically, the king sends, for the story, you can read this in Nehemiah, the king sends Nehemiah with a guard and contingent to Jerusalem. Nehemiah goes to Jerusalem. He builds up the wall, and he surveys the wall. He doesn't tell people what he's doing when he first gets there. Builds up the wall. Lots of opposition in the process. In fact, there's two main people, Sanballat and Tobiah, that are representatives in the Bible of the enemy, of Satan. And they basically are coming against Nehemiah building up this wall. So he has a real fear of real enemies. But where Nehemiah's fear lies is not with those real enemies. And you never see it. His real fear lies with the king as representative of the real king of the time and as representing God. Nehemiah's fear is based in the right place. Okay? Our fear for us to get clear guidance needs to be based not on what we're looking at, not on what's opposing us, not on the evil in front of us, but fear by following the king that can overcome all those things. Okay? The guidance comes not here and not in the opposition. It comes by following the king. So Nehemiah followed the king. Now, some interesting things about guidance that Nehemiah comes upon. Number one, he gets there and he starts assessing the gates. And he says, he's riding his donkey around in the dark with just a few people that don't really quite know what he's doing. And he says, as he comes to what used to be the gate, the fountain gate to the king's pool. So you can imagine used to be a nice gate. Okay, it's the fountain gate. Think of a nice fountain to the king's pool. Well, it's so bad he has to dismount because he says, I couldn't get past the rubble. I couldn't get past the rubble. So what used to be beautiful is now rubble. I relate to this. I relate to I couldn't get past the rubble. When I talk about guidance in my life, my own life, okay, the rubble tends to scream louder these days than those direction things that I said were so amazing. And sometimes dismounting and looking at the rubble is about all I can do. Well, Nehemiah doesn't stop there. He keeps going. Okay, he goes beyond the rubble. He surveys. He gets the people to start build up the wall. Then he is confronted by enemies. Okay, the next thing he confronts isn't his own thing. The people who are building the wall faithfully, they get tired. They're getting attacked on different sides. They're having to keep their guard up all the time. They're working their tails off. They get tired. They get discouraged. And they say, workers were becoming tired. They were getting tired. There was so much rubble to be moved that we could never get it done. Meanwhile, our enemies were saying, look at somebody next to you and say, meanwhile, our enemies were saying. How many times do you, now, I got to tell you, when I used to talk about enemies as a young Christian, it was in a general sense. I tell you now, in the last 5 years, I have earned myself real enemies. I can name them, okay? I have real enemies. When you are doing something that you feel implored to do by God, there is a clear enemy that stands in front of you. Sometimes you can name them, and sometimes you can't name them. But there's an enemy, and he will counter God's purposes because his one desire and design is to tear down anything God cares about. And what does God care about more than those of you that sit in this room? Well, he died for people, not things, not buildings, nothing else. Okay? So if he can tear God's people down, if he can tear any people, because God died for everybody, then he has done the pinnacle of his job. Okay? So meanwhile, our enemies were saying they're fearful, they're discouraged. And meanwhile, what's happening? Our enemies are saying, it's great. Now, the flip side is New Hope Elementary. This is all about New Hope Elementary. I'm the principal at New Hope Elementary. Let me tell you a little bit about my enemies right now. Okay? This is my school. I love this school. This has been the guidance that has brought me to a place I never thought I'd be at. Okay? I never wanted to be at, to tell you the truth. But again, I'm a hard sell. Don't put your guidance in my guidance. I'm a hard sell. God has to basically move me into places he wants me. That's why I'm in this church. Okay? I'll go to that later. Okay? New Hope Elementary. Basically, the name was one of the reasons I took the job. Don't let it fool you. It's a public school. It's got all the trappings of public school. When I got there, I thought myself pretty good at relationships, okay? I question that now 4 years later. I have made just about everybody there mad, okay? I'm a pusher. So when I see a goal and a direction and something stated, whether given to me or something that God's put in my heart, I push hard. So the teachers and I have had maybe a couple of issues, and the parents and I have had a couple of issues, and certainly kids and their behavior have had a couple of issues. Well, all that starts to iron out to where in the last couple of years, New Hope has started to move forward as a school. And the kids who are in an impoverished community with lots of crime and lots of gangs in Santa Ana have started to receive some awards for what they've been doing, okay? So, and the teachers have started to see that. And I've had a Christian guy come in and start a karate class, so I have a little bit of Christian influence, guys that just care about, and we'll talk about God. We got a lot of people that won't talk about God on the campus, but do care about kids. But then we finally have some influence that's moving kids forward, okay? So what happens? Well, we have had 4, now 5. I come to you today from my school site because I went to go print this out. It's right next to my house, to find the 4th burglary this week and the 5th burglary in 4 months, same MO, same people. They've stolen over $45,000 of equipment, computers that my kids use to learn, okay? They'll be back tonight to go take the other 39 computers they didn't get in the room they got into, okay? I don't know what this enemy looks like, but it's a clear enemy that's opposing my kids' God's purpose on that. Now, that might sound silly to you, but no other site in the whole district has been hit 4 times in a week. I would say lots of sites in the district are moving their kids forward. Some of the sites in the district have Christian principals and teachers that are moving their kids closer to God. But for whatever reason, the battle in front of me and the enemy before me, I can't see. Now, I can see a lot of the enemies. I'm not going to go into who they are. I can see a lot of the enemies that are before me as well. So, guidance against enemies happens. It happens in the midst of it. If I keep my eye on the enemy, it will not guide me in any way. My eye is on the King. Okay? Guidance in action. We talk about guidance on the flip side of what's opposing the guidance to moving in the guidance, different things that go in, turning or returning. And by that I mean things that are walls that are the bad walls that are in the way, they got to go. Okay, Nehemiah addressed one of those walls. God, I know your people have sinned against you. They've turned away from your commandments. My own family, he says, we have sinned against you. Nehemiah says we blew it. Okay, so one of the pieces of guidance in action is the actively, we were going this way, it was the wrong way, we need to go this way or this way. But there's a turning, or that's for the people that weren't God's. For the people that were God's, there's a returning. Okay, you were headed one direction, and you need to return to the direction that you went, or at least return to the King. Okay, asking, waiting, continuing, overcoming, listening, planning, going, adjusting, working, battle, completing, dedicating. Lots of different pieces to the process. But again, it's not a principle-related thing. It's not a formulaic thing. Okay, here's some of Nehemiah's direct responses. Okay, in Nehemiah 1, "Oh God, please hear my prayer. Listen to the prayers of those who delight in honoring you." Okay, he says that prayer. God, hear my prayer. Say it again. God, hear my prayer. Okay. And then it says, early in the following spring. Early in the following spring. Now, who knows what season it was when he said, God, hear my prayer. But we know it was at least a season away because he says the following spring. So he had to wait. He says, God, hear my prayer. And then there's a period of waiting. Waiting is a period is a piece of guidance. Okay?